Hey y'all, today we're going to be making a good gravy pork roast in our slow cooker. All while having a whole lot of fun. Good gravy. Hey y'all, welcome back to another edition of Cooking Chris's Dishes with me, Mikey Goode from ReaderRecipes.crock.com, my beautiful wife's cooking blog. And today we're going to be making a good gravy pork roast. Now, y'all have seen us do the good gravy beef, and y'all have seen us do the good gravy chicken, so this way we're going to round out the barnyard and do it with a pork roast. Cris told me this week, she's like, honey, I need your help. I'm like, you know, I'm the man for the job, baby, whatever it is. She goes, well, I need you to do the good gravy pork roast, but it's not a low-carb recipe. Do you think you can do it? And I said, well, I think I can, as long as you get us some mashed potatoes, because if I'm not going to go low-carb, let's go high-carb with it. So we're going to make ourselves a good gravy pork roast, and what you're going to need for this recipe are the following ingredients. You need a pork roast. We have about a 3 1/4 pound pork roast in, I'm going to start calling her Old Scratchy. This is our tried and true Ninja slow cooker, and I don't know if you could really tell, I think it's best on this side. This is a bone-in roast. We normally order boneless roast, but sometimes our substitutions or whatever they could find in the store, so we got a bone-in roast, that's okay. More flavor. You also want a can of beefy mushroom soup. You also want a can of cream of mushroom soup, and I've got it in a bowl so it's a lot easier for me to pour. And then you've got a packet of ranch, a packet of au jus gravy. You can use brown gravy if need be. And then also you want some pepper jack cheese. I've got 4 slices. It's all going to depend on how much cheese it takes to cover your roast. And then you've got the can of mushroom soup that was left over, but you see all that goodness right there? We're going to use some of that chicken broth just to go out and rinse out that can, because you don't want to waste all that goodness down in there. And then the rest is simple. I got my pork roast, and I'm just going to dump my brown gravy mix over the top of it. And then after the brown gravy mix, I'm going to pour my soup over it. My cream of mushroom soup, that is. Oops. And if it goes, it might slide off. It's really no big deal because it's all going to cook together anyway. But I'm going to try and get that on the top and let it cook down over that beef roast, or that pork roast rather, as much as possible. And this is an all-day recipe, because what you're looking for with this pork roast, again, just like you would with beef, you want to go low and slow, because that's going to make it fall apart tender. And I just flung that stuff everywhere. That's okay. Aki will clean that up later. So we'll put that right up there as best I can on that roast. I tried to find the fattiest side of this pork roast, because you want the fat side up, again, because as it heats up and everything renders, you want that fat to render down into the meat. It's going to make for juicier meat, also more flavorful, I think. And I think that bone in there will probably add a lot of the flavor too. So we got that. I'll set that there. Take my ranch packet. I think that spatula's about to fall off that can. Let's try that again. Ranch packet right over the top of the roast and your soups. Just like that. In the trash that goes. And then your au jus or brown gravy, depending on what you can find. Either one will work. I think the brown gravy might make it a little thicker, but that's okay. Right over the top. And now, I don't want to waste either one of these soups, all the leftovers that were in there. So I'm going to take just a little bit, about a 1/4 cup of chicken broth. Actually, that can's pretty clean, so I'll just use this one. And this is a rule from my mother-in-law, or as we call her, Mama. And that is, you just want to stir that up in there, because you don't want to waste your soup. So, as you dump it all over the counter like I did. Sorry, Mama. I'll clean that up later. Alright. And that's just going to go right over the top of your mixes. Gets it a little wet down in there. Now, we're done with all that, take my hands off. A little messy here today, but that's okay. You don't have to be perfect in the kitchen. I'm not. But it's still okay to be cute in the kitchen. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pepper jack cheese and lay over the top of my pork roast. We're going to give it a little hat, if you will. And so when I got done with it, it looked like this. Look at that. There we go. Just got the cheese covering the pork roast there. And it's a mess down in the bottom, but that's okay because as it heats up, it's going to help to mix all that stuff together. That cheese is all going to melt down, and the fat's going to render out of the meat itself. And now I'm going to cook this on low for 5 to 6 hours. If it's possible, you might want to flip that roast over halfway through cooking if you can. If not, it's okay. But if you do, it's just going to make it more tender and it's going to mix those flavors a little bit better. If not, don't worry about it. But in 5 or 6 hours, as soon as I know that that meat is tender and cooked all the way through, I'm going to come back and we're going to have dinner together. In 3, 2, 1. And we are back, and it's been a little over 6 hours now that this roast has been in there. When it got done at 6 hours, it automatically went to warm. I was out of here. Addie called me and said, "Dad, the alarm went off. What should we do?" What I should have told her to do was to flip it over. I didn't want her to mess with it, so when I came home at about 6.5 hours after we put that in, the top of the roast and the bottom of the roast were a little bit different. What sat down and all that liquid was definitely a lot more tender. The top of the roast was cooked all the way through, but it wasn't near as tender because it didn't get a soak in that liquid. So I flipped it over and I let it go for another hour. So actually it's been in there for about 7 hours now. 7.5, somewhere in there. So hopefully it will have made it a little bit more tender sitting in there like that, but that's what you got. It's done all the way through. I could tell, I mean, I could put a thermometer on if need be, but I could tell even with the bone there, everything's cooked all the way through. But let me show you what it looks like down below. When you pull the roast out, that's what it looks like down below. You got all those mushrooms, and then if you look right there, you can see parts of the cheese. Now, some people will go, "Oh my goodness," and the first time I did this, I thought the same thing. You would think that cheese is burnt. It's not burnt. That's actually the gravy mix, the powder mix that you put in there. So all you want to do is just stir that up and let that cheese break down and melt into your other gravies. And that's going to thicken it up, and of course it's giving it even more flavor with that pepper jack cheese. My mouth is watering while I'm holding this camera. What I want to do now is just stir that up, and then I'll cut my roast off the bone. Okay, so I've stirred this up to let the cheese kind of break down and melt on into that gravy, and I used 4 slices of cheese. I think that's well enough in order to thicken this up. If you want to use more cheese, I'm not going to get mad at you. In fact, I don't see who would, because more cheese is always better. But I think we're good right there. Ooh, someone's latched up. That's hot. Oh, that's good too. So now I'm going to do is grab one of my forks here, and I'll take my knife, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut the roast off of the bone. Oh yeah, it's not even pink in the middle. It's all white in the middle. It's all done. Let me cut off a couple more slices here. I'll finish cutting this off whenever I'm done showing y'all what it's like in a bowl. But that is the top of it. If I go to the bottom, that knife should go through even easier. It's not tough per se, but there on the bottom where it sat in those juices all day, it's really tender. So that recommendation that Lou had about flipping it halfway through, definitely something if it is possible to do. If not, it's still going to cook all the way through, that's fine. But if you want it to be tender all the way around, then I recommend flipping it halfway through if it's at all possible. But I'm running my, it's hard to see because I got that other hunk of meat sitting there in front. It's where you can't see this hunk of meat cut up that hunk of meat. But this was what was on the bottom that soaked in that liquid all day. And I'll take and hold it with the top of my knife, and I can take my fork and pull it apart. That's a good sign that that is really, really tender. I'll take a little piece. That's a good pork roast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me a bowl with some of these mashed potatoes. And we're always transparent here. These are not homemade mashed potatoes. Bob, my friend Bob made these, Bob Evans. But these are about the best mashed taters that I have found that taste anything like my mama's. I'm gonna get some mashed potatoes, and then I'll take some of this pork roast, and I like mine right on the top. I know some people are like, no, you got to keep your mashed potatoes separate from your meat, separate from your other veggies. That's fine. You do it your way. This is the way I do mine. I'm just going to take some of this pork roast and lay right on top. Oh, it smells so good. I'm going to lay it right on top of these mashed potatoes, just like that. I get one more piece. It's my house. And then I'll take my spoon. Actually, I'll dirty another piece here. And I'm going to grab a ladle. That way I can get all these mushrooms, some of that cheese, and that gravy, and go right over the top of my pork roast, just like that. Let that gravy soak down into those mashed potatoes. And that's how you get good gravy pork roast. But you know it's not approved until you get that first bite with all those good ingredients in there. But this came right straight out of the slow cooker, so I know it's hot. Oh yeah. There's a stool right here. I think I'll use it and enjoy my dinner. The mushroom gravy that's in there, one, I love mushrooms, and that brown gravy, there's so much flavor and it soaks into that meat of the pork. And the cheese, it melts pretty good, but then there's a little bit of it that doesn't melt, so there's little chunks of cheese in there. It's like little bitty treasures from heaven, because you mix that with the mushrooms, and of course you get a big old bite of that pork with those mashed potatoes. Y'all, that's Sunday comfort food right there. That is perfect for a Sunday dinner, or I'm cooking it on a Tuesday night. I think it's perfect for that. But there is so much flavor. If y'all don't care for mushrooms, and I know there are some people out there that don't, just use, I would say, like a beefy gravy, or like a beefy soup mix, and then maybe a cream of celery would be good. But for y'all who like mushrooms, like I do, and that's not just because I'm a fun guy, to me there's so much flavor in that. There's a reason they call that good gravy. But if y'all like what you're seeing here with the videos, with the cooking, with the family, some random bearded dude stuff in his face while he's talking to you, make sure you give us a like down below. And also, if you've not become a member of the Crock Posse, all you got to do is click the little subscribe button down below. You're a member of our Crock Posse, and if you want to see the videos as soon as we put them up, make sure that you click the little ding-a-ling over there, that little bell next to the subscribe button. That way YouTube can let you know every time we put up a new video. But most importantly, y'all, laugh often, eat good food, and speak life. Good gravy. If you want to see the latest, click on the left right here. If you feel like subscribing, click on the right, my dear. And if you think we're funny enough to send us money, click the Patreon link below.